Pulling back from the brink, with the EU having sealed a deal on special status for the UK, fears of a British exit from the EU have lessened, but at what cost for the European project? Or can at least some of the provisions, like on competition, make Europe stronger? Hello and welcome to People First, the EPP Group's monthly program on issues with impact on people like you. Joining us to answer some of your questions is Paulo Rangel, your Vice Chair of the EPP Group here in the European Parliament, and also President of the European Ideas Network. Now, you just dashed away from your own hearing on potential Brexit and the impact on it. What's the buzz during that hearing right now?
I think that is a very, I'd say, ambiguous one. So, because we have in this seminar a very high participation of young members of national parliaments, and so all this issue of what is the exact role of national parliament towards European institutions, European Commission and European Parliament included, is at stake, I'd say. So it's not only the issue of the United Kingdom and of the Brexit remain question, but also what is our own role. So this is probably one of the risks of this debate, is that it can be, I'd say, reproduced in each capital.
And it's quite a lot of question marks that we're going to have up ahead in the next few months before the expected referendum, in June. Let's take a closer look at the issue before we go to our viewer questions. Here we go.
The Special Status Agreement for the United Kingdom is aimed at giving the British government the provisions it needs to persuade voters to cast their ballots in a referendum for continued EU membership. Among the measures, a so-called emergency brake on benefits for large inflows of migrants, the 7-year freeze on benefits for newly arrived EU citizens working in Britain is less than the 13 years Prime Minister David Cameron had asked for. The UK or any other non-Eurozone country can demand a debate among EU leaders on any pending new regulations for the currency union, but there's no veto power on the regulations themselves. The accord says the UK is not committed to further political integration in the EU, and that references to ever closer union do not apply to the United Kingdom. Finally, commitments to cutting red tape and encouraging growth and job creation for the entire EU. The accord also supports the EU developing more international trade deals.
Okay, so some of these aspects, the EPP Group has been asking for a long time on trade, on competition. So how much can you sell this as a win-win to all Europeans?
Well, I think that this issue of competition, of competitiveness, of a broader single market, of more trade agreements in the global scale. Right. All these are things that will give to the Europeans, non-British Europeans, a positive vision of this agreement. But also the idea that it's important to keep UK on board, even if we have to do some concessions, because they give us, I would say, the Atlantic contribute. And of course, if for Europe it's very important, the Mediterranean dimension, the Eastern dimension, the Atlantic dimension is also very important. Even the relationship with the States, the United States, could be transformed if the UK leaves. So I think these two aspects combined can convince the Europeans that this is a reasonable agreement.
So let's go to our first Vox Pop question on whether the British government has gone too far.
Ich bin aus Deutschland zu Besuch hier im Europäischen Parlament in Straßburg. Für mich stellt sich da wirklich die Frage, lohnt es sich, dass die Engländer, sagen wir, einfach diese Forderungen so massiv stellen?
So, right, have they, as this woman is asking, have too many demands been placed on Europe here?
I would recognize that the first position of the British government was probably a quite radical and extreme one. Yes. But I think that was pure negotiation. And at the end, the result that we have reached is quite satisfactory, and it doesn't cross the red lines that are put by the European values, by the core European values, I would say. So this is respect.
So exactly on this issue of ever closer union, here's a Vox Pop question on whether perhaps the British went too far with that.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Stéphane Lay, je suis français et j'ai une question pour les eurodéputés. Ne pensez-vous pas que la solution pour une Europe qui est déjà à 28, mais qui, j'espère, un jour passera à 47 comme celle du Conseil de l'Europe, ce soit de mettre tout simplement en place, comme les États-Unis, un État fédéral.
After this agreement with the British, though, is there not this sort of concept of either a two-speed Europe or a looser federation? Is that not going to be the result of this agreement?
Well, I think that this agreement really places a very clear question, and that is that we have to have a two-speed Europe.
You buy that argument,
I buy
right?
that argument.
Yeah.
I say the countries that want to integrate more and to come to a kind of a federal union,
Right.
they should be allowed to do it. And this is also in the agreement, but the others that want to remain in a less strong involvement with the European idea, they also should have the possibility to have some advantages, like, for instance, the participation in the single market.
What if the scenario, and you're probably discussing this during this hearing today, is what if the UK voters choose to split? What would be the impact of that? Here's a question.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Anita Kalpaka. I come from Greece. I would like to ask if in UK, if you realize that a Brexit could produce a split in your country, because maybe UK will choose the exit, but the Scotland and the Scottish people would like to stay in the European Union.
So that is a question that is raised by a lot of people. If there is a Brexit, so to speak, what if other members of the United Kingdom decide they want to stay, like Scotland?
Well, in that case, I think that we should be open to receive these new members if they have the proper and the adequate way of living their own country, and so create a new country, a new reality. I think that we should be open to that. What I think that it must be clear in this whole process is that a no is a no, and have consequences and implications for the United Kingdom. This should be very clear.
That they have to live with the consequences too.
Yes, that is the point.
That's the point.
So there's no second negotiation, there's no second referendum, there's no second best.
Right.
This is the best that they have got, and this is very important. We have already this experience in EPP Group. The Conservative Party, the Tories, they were very important members of our group. They decided to leave. And that had some consequences also for them, because they had some posts that were very important. Their influence was even greater than it is now.
They lost influence in the
And
parliament.
they lost influence in the parliament, of course. And so that's what will happen with Britain. And then they have to live also with this, I'd say, nightmare, that the end of the participation of the United Kingdom in the European Union could be the end of the United Kingdom as such.
And here's another aspect that's very interesting talking to people out there is there is some exasperation among people that the British government is asking too much. Why should we keep them in anyway? Here's a good question on that.
Mein Name ist Hans-Georg Götze, ich komme aus Deutschland. Warum muss der Engländer immer eine Extrawurst gebraten kriegen? Man sollte sich wirklich überlegen, dem Engländer zu sagen, bis hierhin und nicht weiter, oder es soll gehen.
So how much of that sentiment do you feel among EU leaders or people here in the parliament?
We feel that a lot of people think like this person that has made this question, but they ask this question. But at the same time, a lot of people think in the other way. I see, for instance, that in Sweden or in Denmark or in Ireland or in Portugal or in the Netherlands, that are quite Atlantic countries, they, even if the participation of the UK is a not so committed one, they think that it's very important to balance the powers in the continental Europe, to have a very important country, large, with influence, that is a quite pro-Atlantic one.
How optimistic are you, or pessimistic, that this agreement will be approved in the parliament and by British voters?
I'm really confident that it will be approved, because I think that there is here the danger of a leak in the dark. And so that they don't, it's uncertainty and insecurity what will happen after a leave, after a Brexit. Yes. And so that now people are so insecure, so uncertain with terrorism, with refugees, with economic crisis, that to add a new crisis to this would be so difficult. Probably people will be pushed to vote for Remain and not for Brexit.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rangel. That's it for now on People First. Find out more about the activities of the largest political force in Parliament by checking eppgroup.eu. Until next time, thanks for watching.